Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Ribbon the Boards, where we talk all things NASCAR. I'm your host, Sam. Let's get right into the episode. So, today we'll be talking about just this past weekend of NASCAR. We just watched Phoenix for the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series. Well, if you guys also follow ARCA, we had the ARCA race on, I believe, Friday night. And Joe Gibbs Racing, they were able to get it done in all three races. So kudos to them. Um, so we were talking about the a lot online. We were talking about the end of the Xfinity race. Was it fair? Was it foul? Or was it just, you know, nothing? Nothing to be talked about. And so I'll get into that in a little bit. But yesterday we had the Cup Series race. And I must say, it was actually one of the best Phoenix races that I can remember, especially since they repaved and reconfigured the track. Um, man, it's I don't really know what else you could expect from a Phoenix race. Um, we already had Jimmy Mack saying that there hasn't been a good race here in its whole history. I would um I would contend that, but this is just not a facility where you're gonna get those type of barn burners. You get crazy things that happen, but all in all, it's fairly tame as far as most of the racetracks that we go to. But yesterday, I would say that we had some phenomenal racing. I mean, I've enjoyed the racing there in the entire next gen period, next gen era, but I'm in the minority with that, of course. Um, I kind of like it when things are hard to pass, it's difficult to pass. You gotta really really be on the wheel. You have to really make that pass happen. You gotta do the work, and for one, I enjoy that. But when I get to see that we have comers and goers, we get to see people actually have to preserve their equipment, not just their tires, but also their brakes. We get to see whose cars are really dialed in for that day, and we get to see the driver's talent. And so I feel like yesterday's race actually did a much better job of that than we've had in a long time here at Phoenix. In a long time. And the new option tire is also another reason. It added another storyline. It added another wrinkle to the race that we have not had in a long time. We had last year at the newly repaved North Wilkesboro Speedway. North Wilkesboro Speedway, my goodness, and we also had it at Richmond, and those are two completely different you know, um, ages of tracks. One is newly repaved, one is wearing out tires left and right. And Phoenix is right in the middle. Um, just about, is a good amount of tire wear. You're gonna need to get tires almost every time every time there's a caution, and you're gonna get tires on a pretty consistent basis. So I feel like this was a great track to test out a newer option tire that we've been using, continuing to get these tires softer and softer. So they're going to go up in speed, but they're also going to wear out a little bit more. We love that. We love that. As NASCAR fans, we eat that up. Um, and so we had the option tire. First to go on the option tire yesterday was Ryan Preece, and he restarted, I believe, on lap 20 or so of the first stage was 60 laps. He went from 33rd to third, y'all. Boy was flying through the field, man. I was like, what we got going on? It was crazy. Man, I was just excited to see. It was like if you have a bad start to your race, and you're looking for some stage points, especially early on, that was a great experiment, and it turned out to be a major success. Only problem is that when you have, a whole bunch of guys on the option tire, which was they call it the option tire, and they had the standard tire. I don't remember exactly what it was called, but you had the option tire, which gave you what seemed like an infinite speed boost, and then you had the standard tire. So if you were the only one on the option tire, then if your car was handling, pretty well, more than likely you were gonna fly through the field, and it was not gonna be a contest, until there was a turnover point to where the tires were worn out to the point where you just could not maintain that speed, and then the regular tire or the standard tire would finally give you, the advantage back. The pendulum would swing. And we were seeing that it was about 40 laps as opposed to 30 laps that we initially were were estimating. I say we as in NASCAR, and the those who had done tire runs on the option tire. And so it took about 40 laps to get that crossover. But in that time span, it seemed like you had 2 or 3 tenths in your pocket every lap. And 2 or 3 tenths, especially on a racetrack as small as Phoenix, that's gonna really add up. Man, you get 2 or 3 tenths every lap. You can, if you start in the front and no one else has the tires, you could. Seems like you can almost lap the field at that pace. But as it goes to show, you're gonna pay that price on the long run. And it was good that Joey Logano in the second stage was already so as far forward as he was when he put the option tires on. But with that being said, let's get into the bad parts of this race. The bad part of the race, for me especially, um, we had a lot of we had a lot of brake failures. It seems that the single source parts that NASCAR insists that we have to maintain the integrity, of the sport, the vendor that they have, it seems like they're not up for the job, because we've been having more steering part failures, more brake rotor, and rotors exploding at an alarming rate. And of course you got to take care of your stuff, but there are just certain things that if it happens so often, you have a problem. And like NASCAR, we got to do something about that. We have to, because in the last 100 laps alone, we had 2 or 3, and not including Michael McDowell's. I believe it was just a tire that went down, and he barely touched the wall, and NASCAR was quick to throw the caution for that, which was my biggest gripe with the race. NASCAR continuing to throw cautions that are not cautions. I'm more on the side of let them race. If it was up to me, had them swallow the flag, swallow the whistle on the last lap entirely. It doesn't matter what happens. It's not like they're gonna die. Like it's not like they're gonna die within the 2 seconds, 2 or 3 seconds that it would take to get the leaders across the finish line, like there was in the Daytona duels this year with Aaron Jones and Austin Cindric. No one was gonna die. You could have had safety cars get to them in a safe manner, If you just let the leaders cross the line, that's the most important part. Especially, unless it's like a race where the win was never in doubt, then that doesn't really matter. But stuff like that, there should be no reason for that. And getting back to yesterday with Michael McDowell, he barely touched the wall. He barely touched the wall a little bit. He got high off the groove. Yeah, he hit the wall, but that did not warrant a whole caution. That people are able to, use your common sense. Use your common sense. You see a car that's up against the wall, you know, you can use your judgment and make sure you don't hit into them. You don't cause a bigger, a bigger problem. There was a problem, but it didn't warrant a caution. We've had cars blow tires out before, and if they didn't leave a whole bunch of debris, we let it go. But there are also times where people just barely get out of shape, and we're throwing cautions. The drivers want consistency. We want consistency, and we're not getting it. And it's so frustrating how NASCAR continues to just not get out of their own damn way. It's really frustrating. It's annoying. It's ruining the integrity of the sport that we have. It's really becoming more entertainment based, and I, for one, am tired of it. But putting so many years of my life into loving this thing, can't just walk away, So it's like, oh, you're still here, so we're just gonna continue as business as usual. Maybe it's gonna take a lot more people to walk away from the sport entirely in order for us to get the change that we're looking for. But hopefully that doesn't have to happen. I was just so angry when it happened yesterday that I was like, man, whoever is in charge of touching that damn button needs to have their fingers smashed up, because what do you if you're a real NASCAR fan, you know that the truest form of racing that you're going to get is when you have a race that just naturally flows. You have your short run, you have your medium run, and you have your long run. That's how you know who's actually fast. And that's another reason that, us as actual racing fans, and not those who are just casuals, and not just those who just watch just to see accidents and nonsense. If you actually care about racing, you want to see natural progression of a race. You don't want to see a whole bunch of restarts. You don't want to see a whole bunch of accidents. We know that those are all part of racing. We know that cautions are inevitable sometimes. But for NASCAR just to continue throwing those at their discretion, basically, and then, after the race, they're probably going to have Elton Sawyer or whoever's going to be the person that they had to put up to the podium to talk about, like, oh yeah, this was a caution, and we did this because this, and if you guys would just make the proper calls in the moment, you wouldn't have to keep doing this. And so this is why me and a lot of other fans are just airing out our grievances. We're not even just sitting back anymore. We're just angry. And NASCAR, you gotta do something about that, because as many cautions have happened in the past, like even this year in the Daytona 500, where there was a phantom debris caution, and it changed the whole complexion of the race. Yesterday changed the whole complexion of the race after that caution, where immediately after that we had the big one. We had the big one because why? I mean, of course, guys are being aggressive, trying to get after it on a restart. But it was a restart that should have never happened because it didn't warrant a caution. There's nothing you could say that would make me feel otherwise, because it was nonsense. Those who actually watch the sport know that there was no need for that. And there needs to be even bigger outrage So NASCAR knows that they just cannot keep doing this. They just can't. They can't. And yeah, that was the main gripe that I had about the race. But other than that, I mean, I must say, Christopher Bell, man, kudos to you, dog. You're over here just on a tear right now. Um, yes, we all know, who the top dogs in the sport are, but if you haven't had Christopher Bell as one of your top dogs in the last few years, you have not been watching. Dude is consistent. He knows how to get it done in clutch moments. He knows how to just flat out wheel a race car. So kudos to him. Excited to see his steady progression to being one of the more elite drivers in the Cup Series. Man, it's just it's exciting to see. Um, People hate to see dominance in the time we're in, in the present, but especially when you look back and you see who were the upper echelon drivers, who were the Dale Earnhardts, who were the Jimmy Johnsons, who are the Jeff Gordons, who are the Richard Pettys, who are the Davey Allisons, the Bobby Allisons, the Darrell Waltrips, who are these guys? And we have a few drivers who are separating themselves among the upper drivers of the sport. These guys are starting to become all-time greats. You know, it's it's exciting to see, and I for one, I just love to see excellence. You know, so kudos to Christopher Bell again, 3 in a row, going to Vegas where he has a realistic chance to make it 4 Cup wins in a row. I'm really going to be watching this weekend to see if he can get it done. And then, as I promised earlier in the video, we're going to get to the Xfinity race and the finish. So the Xfinity race, I didn't get to watch it live, but I was able to record it and watch it early Sunday afternoon and before the Cup race. And I would say that it was really good racing. The Xfinity guys prove once again that their car is a superior car in terms of most racing. It's a platform that hasn't been changed for a long time. It's been about the same platform since 2012, 2011. And with that consistency, you were worried that you're just going to get the same guys winning all the time. And sometimes that happens. You also worry that the box is just going to be so tiny that there's no room for error. But it seems that if you actually can get a car dialed in, that you're able to get out there and do what you got to do. You can get out there, you can dominate, you know what I'm saying? And dominate Justin Allgaier did. My goodness, he's got this place figured out. It just seems that one thing after another, it seems like NASCAR hates him, and it seems like this track in general just hates him. But in December, in November during the championship race, he was just not going to be ignored. But it seems like outside of that, this place just has a vendetta against him. My goodness. I hate that caution came out with a few laps to go for lights. Guy was just chugging along back there, and it seems 20th place or so, 25th, whatever. That's how much it didn't matter where he was. But it wasn't his fault. It seemed like a chunk of tire or debris or whatever fell out of his car at the weirdest time, and he ran over it, and it turned him around and snapped it on him. I hate cautions coming out that late in the race, but that's a legit caution. You got to throw that. Bad enough that he wasn't able to drive his car back to pit road. So you got to throw the caution there, and you got to execute. And even though Allgaier had the best car of the race, you know, it was him, Alex Bowman, and it was Eric Almirola, the eventual winner. That were the three guys with the best cars, but you had great racing throughout, and so throughout the field. And so um, Allgaier just was not able to execute on the ensuing restart. Alex Bowman was able to get by him, and so was Eric Almirola. But we all saw, if you guys were able to see the finish, we all saw how it was clean that whole way through until the very end, where ironically, Eric Almirola would complain and be like, "Oh, I need to teach these guys how to be able to race clean, be gentlemen and all that." But he was the only one all day who decided to just absolutely he took out Alex Bowman. That it's plain and simple. It's really plain and simple. But he's gonna be the same one to get out, be like, "Oh, I don't like when people be driving over aggressive." Says the same guy who got mad at Joey Logano being on his door when he was like nowhere near him. At Texas a few years ago, saying like, "Oh, being so aggressive. You have wins. No, I don't have a win." You go say that, but then you go basically wreck Alex Bowman for a win in the Xfinity Series because you couldn't hang with the big boys in the Cup Series. Man, you a joke. You a whole joke. You a buster. Seriously, and that's why I lost a whole bunch of respect for Eric Almirola in the last few years. You know, he'd be a great guy if he just shut his mouth, just drove and not put their hands on people. Not put your hands on people. You try that with the wrong people, you're gonna get your hands, you know. But we're not gonna talk about that. We ain't gonna talk about that. But what we will talk about is how he just used them up. It's just plain and simple. It wasn't warranted. No one used him up during the race. It was a super clean race up until that point. Yeah, you had your accidents, but there was not people driving overly aggressive to the point where it was dirty. But when it all came down to it, he decided he wanted to win that way. So he completely overdrove the corner, knowing that there was no way he was going to be able to make the corner without using up the car to his outside. I mean, good thing he had him out there, because if he didn't, he was going to go in straight into that wall. And who knows? Who knows if he would have won then? So, if you're a real driver, just like how these guys were in the Cup Series last week, you had more of an opportunity to just knock each other out the way, bump and run, and like slamming, rubbing is racing. Yeah, there was a little bit of rubbing, but that was door to door, no one being knocked out of the way to gain an advantage. These guys, they raced super clean. They were aggressive, and it seemed like they could, they were able to not even lean on each other. They were door to door. They were right on each other, giving it all that they had, but not crossing the line. And here we have the very next week in the Xfinity race with a guy who's supposed to be retired. He's retired from full-time racing, but he wants to come on here and beat up on little kids, basically. It's a shame. It's a shame. And he wants to be the one to talk about respect and all that nonsense. Come on, Eric. Be better. Be better, Eric. It's a shame. Be better. And with that, that's it for today. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for your time. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Let's Talk _NASCAR for more. Hope you guys will be keeping up with me. Can't wait to talk to you guys in the comments. And let's keep it all respectful. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.